So yesterday I posted up in the community, we're going to jump back into some mech reviews. And I was opening things up. What mechs do we run a review? And I appreciate the feedback. I've got my list of 17 mechs here ready to go. And we're going to make our way through. Some of these mechs I've visited before and I play. So this is a great chance to circle back around and see if there's any new tactica as we build that checklist, new things that we can consider. Then there's some mechs that I've heard about, I've seen, I've never played them. So we're going to approach those from the perspective of building that tactica checklist. If I'm placing this mech down as a mech commander, what do I see? Strengths, weaknesses, how can I use it individually? How can I use it as part of a lance? And then what was exciting was there was a couple of mechs that, and I pride myself as being pretty proficient with Battletech, I've never heard of these mechs before. So that's going to be really interesting. The excitement of imagine being on the battlefield and on your scanners comes up this mech and you've never seen it before. I have no idea what this mech is. So we're really going to approach that from a fresh set of eyes. Jumping in, the Orion. Let's start with the Orion as a heavy mech, 75 tons, a really fine command mech. The perspective of the lore and the narrative of a game, a very, very solid mech, a well-known mech, representing at that time period the height of mech technology and very, very potent. So how does that play over on the battlefield? The Orion has an interesting mix of long-range and shorter-range weapons, and it has redundancy, not as in the same type of weapon, but weapons that can complement range, but redundancy with flexibility. So what do I mean by that for the new mech warriors out there? First, you got to hit the target. There's modifiers up, there's modifiers down, there's moving back and forth. You got to pick the target, but you have to hit the target. Redundancy in Battletech is where you have two or more of the same weapon or same and or weapon bracket. 2 PPCs on a Marauder, 2 autocannons on a longbow, 2 LRM-20s. This idea that if you're in range and I'm going to fire at you with this weapon, I've got 2 or more to back that up. It just increases the odds of hitting. If I need to roll legendary, that's 2 chances at it. If the modifiers are down and I'm going to blast you and soak you, those are 2 possible. I mean, you do have to roll the dice. 2 possible hits coming your way. Redundancy is also based on range, where you can have 2 very different weapons that operate differently, but they operate at a close or similar range. From that perspective, this is where we jump in with the Orion. We start with the Autocannon 10 and the LRM 15 pack. These are different weapons, but they sync up in the same long-range bracket. So you're going to be firing at things with your missiles and your autocannon. What's interesting here is rather than just say autocannon, and missiles, is that you have the flexibility with the AC-10 to potentially, again, you have to consistently hit with 10 points of damage. You've got the LRM pack for the spread. You could do indirect fire if it presents itself. That's an opportunity. And if you're taking that indirect fire, it's not a 5 or a 10 pack, it's a 15. I'm not saying that the Orion is a dedicated long-range machine, or it's something that I'm going to regularly soak with indirect fire, but there is an opportunity and flexibility with both of those weapon systems, as opposed to 2 large lasers or 2 PPCs or 2 of the same type. So we jump in the Autocannon 10, the LRM 15. Am I going to be critical and say I'd like a 20-pack? Yeah, I'd always like a 20-pack. I'd like a 20-pack on anything for the long-range missile packs. More missiles, more soak. But we're coming in at a heavy mech. It's not an assault class mech. An assault class mech, like we see with the Cyclops or we see with the Atlas, those classic mechs, I expect the 20-pack on there. The 15 for the tonnage and the makeup and what the Orion has, 15-pack is solid. If it was a 10, I might say that's a little underperforming. If it was less than that, then there better be another reason to make up for it. But we've got the 10, AC-10, and we've got the LRM 15-pack. That's solid. So on the way in, you're going to be laying things down. You're going to be putting that firepower down. Now, we've only got 10 heat sinks. You know, this is an inner sphere. heavy mech, 10 heat sinks, we're going to have to potentially watch heat management based on range. As soon as we start blasting with the medium lasers and the autocannon, and we're potentially moving, we have to really kind of watch that heat. But now as we get closer, we've got 2 medium lasers, and we've explored this, and I've pushed up to my Battletech playlist here for the new players, exploring or putting forth the idea that a medium laser is solid. Tonnage, heat, damage, range, 5, 5, 5. It's good. It's solid. You've got 2. So as you now start to close with the Orion, you're going to be zapping with those medium lasers, and you're going to be blasting with that autocannon, or zapping with 1 laser, autocannon, or 2 lasers, pushing the heat a little bit, managing the heat a little bit, but you have a solid way to transition from a long range to now a medium range. Now as we get to the closer range, you've got that short range missile pack. You've got a 4-pack. Can I be critical? Would I like a 6? Yeah, but you know what? Every vlog I do is like, here's my mech, autocannon 20, LRM 20 pack, PPC, SRM 6-pack. I mean, I want the big numbers, but I realize, look, we're up against tonnage, we're up against armor, we're up against other aspects. 4-pack is solid. So now you have, with the Orion, you have consistent fire, or I should say the potential, depending on how heat management, how good you are at it. You have consistent fire at long range, medium range, short range. I view this as kind of a trooper type mech, meaning you don't quite know the map, you don't quite know the battle, you don't quite know the synergy of the other mechs that you're going to be facing. So the Orion, wherever it finds itself, wherever it has to be, I don't want to say that it's good enough, but it'll work. It'll fit in. I see this as a solid workhorse in a lance. Now, being a heavy mech, armor is okay. It's solid. It could take a couple of hits. The bigger issue, of course, is what we see with heavy mechs, and this is a consideration. Mixed use. We've got ammo and energy. We've got the LRMs, and we've got the autocannon ammo. Heavy mechs and assault mechs, there is a possibility that their lifespan gets shortened because it goes to internals. Just based on luck or based on facing and focused fire, if your opponent punches through to those internals, tactically speaking, from a repair bill perspective, your mech is still solid, right? I've only punched through to that one area. There's very little damage to the other areas and no other internal damage. But if that ammo is exposed and it gets hit and it explodes, that does warrant consideration. So you're going to have to watch that as you take damage and try to pay attention to your focusing, pay attention to your range, or potentially pull out. As opposed to, say, now this is an assault mech, but this is a great example of it, the awesome assault mech. You have to put that machine down. There's no ammo in there. It's a pure energy boat. So when we see heavy mechs that are pure energy boats, or like the Grasshopper, you're not reliant on that LRM-5. It's something to do that's on the way in, but at some point, certainly you could jettison the ammo, be completely energy-based, and still be in the game based on the number of energy weapons that you have. The Orion, if you dump that ammo, you're losing, you're losing like a third of its capability at its long range, at its medium range with the autocannon. So from that perspective, you're going to want to hold the ammo, but this leaves us potentially open to that. Now, what about as a command mech or working as a lance? There's a lot you can build around an Orion where if you have it as part of a lance and it's moving forward, it's going to be the anchor point, meaning the other mechs are going to kind of hang out near it, which means for your opponent to potentially shoot at those other mechs, they're going to have to come into range at the Orion. When you're in long range, you're going to shoot. You're going to do the LRM-15. You might do some indirect. You get closer, you're the medium lasers. You get closer, you're the short-range missiles. That workhorse, that trooper mech, that's that solid aspect of it, you're going to kind of hold that position. You've got some armor. You could play with it for a little bit. The question is, what other lance mates do you put? What I normally play, yes, it has an autocannon 20. If you've been following my vlogs, you know that's coming. A hunchback, where I'll move forward with an Orion. Hunchback is primarily a close-based mech, so I've got something on the way in, right? My lance just isn't crippled. I've got something to shoot on the way in. Then as I close and I lock you in with the Orion, trading back and forth, that now allows the Hunchback a potential breakthrough. Could easily be a Jenner, could easily be some of the other mechs, Intersphere mechs, that want to be this kind of bodyguard / breakout type machine. Battle value. We're coming in at about, 1480, 1500, somewhere around there. It's somewhat pricey, but you know what? You've got a good array of weapons. You've got some decent armor, solid trooper mech. It has redundancy at all 3 ranges. You've got a couple of options on there. A solid mech. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. How do you view the Orion? We talked about a trooper mech a little while back. That's how I view an Orion. And this idea of a trooper mech you could say, well, lights don't have trooper mechs. There's light armor. But once you jump into mediums, just kind of excels at everything. The Wolverine, right? There's certain weight classes that they are solid at medium, heavy, and assault. Within that heavy band, this is where I see the Orion as really, really working and contributing to the tabletop.